Doing a tier list is a rite of passage for a YouTuber, so I thought, why not the alphabet? Now, A is the definition of an all-rounder. It's got a nice shape, sounds nice to say A or ah, it can be used at the beginning or end of a sentence, it really does it all. A tier. B is a bit below A. It has a defining shape, but it's only fun to say when enunciating B, which rides off the coattails of the letter E. While the letter B is versatile, you're more often than not going to hear buh a lot more than B. It's good overall, but with noticeable flaws. B tier. C goes even further below those two, being the definition of average. It can be fun to say regardless of the C or K pronunciation, and can go on the ends or the middle of a word, but the shape is lacking and nobody singles out C when discussing noteworthy letters. C tier. D is an overall bad letter. The D pronunciation is carried by the E sound, the D sound does not flow off the tongue well, and its shape is literally a semicircle rotated 90 degrees clockwise. It's the first letter in demon and devil for a reason. D tier. E is the OG E sound. The sound contrasts a lot with the other letters due to not having a B or D sound come before. The design is complex for a letter, but it's distinct and recognizable. Even E can sometimes be fun to say. The only drawback is its lack of versatility, only really being used in the middle of words. I was debating whether or not to put it in A for that, but out of respect for carrying about a third of the alphabet's pronunciation, it's going in S tier. F is something. Its shape is just an E with the bottom line plucked out like an ingrown hair, and its default sound starts with the S sound, which is underutilized compared to the equally boring F. It can bridge together words and start them off, but it's rare to find one at the end of the tunnel. This letter by itself has nothing going on, being totally uninspired and a forgettable letter. E tier. It's saved from F by the repertoire of words it commands. G is another wannabe E. The G sound works well in practice, but the G with the E sound is so overplayed at this point. This is like the 5th time now. But the real issue lies in its design. If your handwriting is not up to snuff, this letter is the bane of your existence. If you mess up writing this letter, you will write a 6 by accident. And it's unfair to bring up lowercase designs so late into the list, but the lowercase g will also confuse you for the number 9 if you're careless. There's a good reason letter grades in school go from A to F. And then we have H, also known as H to some of my English viewers. The default pronunciation is too confusing to go into, and the letter has almost no usage in the middle of words, but it really shines with its range. Help, hold, Helga. The Hess sound is more than enough to make it one of the greats. You quite literally breathe and heave this letter. Combined with a ladder for a design, it truly rises above the others, and rests at A tier. I is one of the most interesting letters on this list. The default pronunciation is iconic, but the short I sounds a bit too similar to the S sound, so minus points there. The true interest comes from the shape, as while the lowercase I is indistinguishable, the depiction of the uppercase I is one of the biggest debates of all time. Do you just draw a line and hope no one confuses it for an L, or do you just flip H 90 degrees? The victor will be decided in time, but for now it goes in A for ambiguous, because there's no I for identity crisis. J is just great. It's fun to say thanks to the assistance of the all-rounder A, and Ja is fun due to it having this bouncy feel to it. It also has a simple yet memorable design, and does its job so well that G tries to steal its thunder with the J sound every now and again. On top of that, it's the 10th letter of the alphabet, and who doesn't love even numbers? A tier. K is a rare case of a letter copying another letter and doing it better, because it's smoke seep by a country kilometer. The K and cuss sounds are just mwah. That design is so clear. So cool, and it instantly makes any name with a C much better. Mark, Eric, Christina, Kevin, you name it. To prove my point, I changed every C in this section to a K just to prove my point. C could never. I mean A tier. L becomes the famous elemental P segment of the alphabet, and while it gets recognition for that, it's just an above average letter. L and La are very common sounds, and the letter can be heard anywhere in the word, but it lacks the oomph in pronunciation, and I mean that. This letter literally denies your tongue the satisfaction of saying words. It's like throwing an underhand pitch instead of an overhead pitch. Both get the job done, but which one really allows you to put all your might into it? The overhead. And L is unfortunately an underhand throw. The design is also pretty mediocre, but it's less confusing to identify than I, since when will you ever see two I's next to each other? It's just a B tier letter. Now M is just that's a letter. The default pronunciation is average, but that is just You can hold the charge as long as you allow it to, and that design is just A tier for sure. N is a noticeably nerfed version of M. The last leg of the M was cut off for its design, and the pronunciation charge is just not as easy to hold as M. Though unlike L, which guarantees an underwhelming pronunciation, the lack of a charge was replaced by a more consistent delivery. Nacho, Nile, neon. Those words are neutral in usage, but have conviction behind them thanks to this delivery consistency. It may not be M, but it's certainly a good old B tier. O is obviously top tier. The circle shape, the pronunciations, this is simplicity done at its finest. I don't need to say any more. This is another top tier, people. P is the end of the elemental P, and is almost perfection. Like H and F, it's more defined by its range, since the P sound is mediocre at best. However, the P sound is the only sound to go toe-to-toe with E, being able to stare it in the face and not flinch. It can also imitate the F sound when paired with H, so its utility trumps the letter F alone. A tier. Q is by far the funniest letter of the alphabet. The Q and Qu sounds are about C tier, and it's without a doubt one of the lesser used letters. But the design simply being an O with a half slash is somehow comedic gold, and is quintessential to life as we know it. A tier. R, matey. This letter is another home run. R is like J, where the A sound helps out a lot, but the is no slouch either. It may seem like the design rips off the P, but that single line does wonders for it. R also has the unique property of being associated with pirates, and pirates are fun if you ignore everything they stand for. It's great. A tier. S is a definitive top tier for a reason. Fun design, fun pronunciation, the whole shebang. You can even draw it like this. Sure, it can look similar to the number 5 depending on the handwriting, but come on, who mistakes an S for a 5? It's always the other way around. Alright, that's it. I gotta bring back the S tier, because it's no coincidence that S is S tier, and that S tier is the letter S. T may not be as fun to say as E, but it can certainly tango with it. The T and T sounds are perfectly acceptable, and the chain combos are exceptional for a consonant. Plus, the design reminds me of the Titan Tower, so B tier. U is quite the letter. It seemingly has the same problem as L, which has an underwhelming delivery, but when pronounced feels more like a roller coaster, which is further accentuated by the roller coaster-like design. The sound, however, is a contender for the best short letter sound in the alphabet, and despite seeming like an E tier, this letter is a sleeper. A tier. Now, before heading into the last 5 letters, I need to make some changes, as a lot of the letters here are favored in A, so I'll be right back with the appropriate changes. Alright, now onto the letter V. Its design is simple and fun to draw, but it's severely impacted by the pronunciations. V is yet another E clone, and V is a heavily nerfed M since all it can really do is V. It's unfortunate, but D tier is getting some company. W is by far the strangest letter in the alphabet. For one, it's called W, but those are clearly 2 V's. The design is especially uninspired since it's literally just 2 V's slammed together hastily. I mean, W's used to look like this. What if the Frankenstein's monster happened here? The long W sound is too many syllables and is only spared from F tier, because Wawa is fun to say. The letter X. Its pronunciations are uninspired, it barely has any application, and its whole design is just 2 sideways slashes. Someone really just drew this and went, "This is good," and left it at that. Were they right? No, they were dead wrong. This is a certified S tier letter. Simplicity is best, baby. Y is just a better V. It sports a more distinct design, more dynamic pronunciations from Y and Ya, and despite rarely being used in the middle of a word, it is a very important and underrated letter of the alphabet. With that being said, you'd expect it to be an A or A+, but it's actually just a C tier for not having the higher highs the other letters have. Last, and certainly least, we have Z, or Z depending on the dialect. Its usage is minimal, its default pronunciation is another knockoff of E, Z is too uncommon to be memorable, and sports a very crude design, which can also be misinterpreted for 2 depending on the handwriting. It goes in an F tier along with G, though for more honest reasons compared to its companion. And there you have it, every letter of the alphabet tiered. No one likes to end on a sour note, but considering over half the alphabet is A tier or above, this amalgamation of language is up to par. Do you agree or disagree? Leave a comment below.